Breaking tonight in a Kelly File exclusive, we have new reaction from a top GOP presidential candidate after President Obama today suggested he is ready to take a tougher stand against the Islamic State terror group, yet then made a pivot, sort of, to climate change. Listen.
This barbaric terrorist group poses a serious threat to all of us. It cannot be tolerated. It must be destroyed. We cannot and we will not succumb to fear. Next week, I will be joining President Hollande and world leaders in Paris for the Global Climate Conference. What a powerful rebuke to the terrorists it will be.
Joining me now, presidential candidate and Republican senator from Texas, Ted Cruz. Senator, good to see you tonight. So President Obama came out and tried to strike a tougher tone on the subject of ISIS today. What did you make of it?
Well, Megan, it's good to be with you. You know, it's gotten to the point where I don't think Saturday Night Live can even parody this president anymore. A couple of weeks ago, he went overseas and he said he's not interested in America leading. He's not interested in America winning. He doesn't have time for that. And now he's saying what a powerful rebuke it is to ISIS that he's going to a global warming summit.
Well, in Paris.
I mean, how out of touch.
In Paris.
And yes, but his focus, listen, President Obama and John Kerry have both said that they think essentially your SUV in the driveway is a greater threat to our security than is ISIS, than is a nuclear Iran, and it makes no sense whatsoever. You know what would be a real rebuke to ISIS? When we kill the terrorist before they carry out another terror attack here at home, murdering innocent Americans.
When you listen to him, he said today this is a barbarous group, that they're a serious threat, that they must be destroyed. Do you think this was in reaction to the criticism he received over his initial reaction to the Paris attacks, or do you take him at his word on what he said today?
Well, look, he's finally using the adjectives for ISIS that he usually reserves for Republicans and for conservatives. So I guess that's a step in the right direction. But at the end of the day, he still refuses to utter the words radical Islamic terrorism. He still has no strategy for defeating ISIS. And he still wants to bring to America tens of thousands of Syrian Muslim refugees, even after his own FBI director admitted this administration cannot vet the refugees to ensure they're not ISIS terrorists. That doesn't make any sense.
Let me shift gears with you now to the politics, because there's been an extraordinary shift in the presidential race. You may be familiar with it. And it inures to your benefit. I mean, all the headlines today were about Ted Cruz and cruise control in Iowa. Take a look at the numbers for the viewers who haven't seen it. Ted Cruz is now basically tied for first. He's behind Donald Trump by 2 points, but man, you're right there in the margin of error in Iowa, besting Carson and the rest of the field by at least 5 points. What do you make of it? What do you attribute your surge?
Well, listen, the energy and momentum we're seeing both in Iowa and nationally are nothing short of breathtaking. And this is a continuation of what has been happening steadily after the third debate, after the fourth debate, which is that we're seeing conservatives unite behind our campaign. What Washington has always wanted is to divide conservatives, to have us splintered. A chunk of conservatives here, a chunk of evangelicals, a chunk of libertarians, a chunk of Tea Party folks. It's a mistake we've made over and over and over again, whether it was Bob Dole or John McCain or Mitt Romney. Every time we listen to the voice of run to the middle, we get clobbered. It doesn't work. They're all good, honorable men, but what they did didn't work. And I think what Republican primary voters are looking for is the strongest proven conservative, someone who's a consistent conservative, someone who's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and also someone who can unite all three legs of the Republican stool
but are you in trouble now on the
fiscal
NSA
conservatives,
vote?
social conservatives, and national security conservatives.
You voted to undo the NSA, which is now you're getting hit by some on the right, but you're the mainstream moderate guy. They say you voted to undo the NSA protection.
Now let's
and you should have moved to the right.
Let's speak the truth. I'm not getting hit by anyone on the right. I'm getting hit by a PAC. Yes, by a PAC supporting Marco Rubio.
Our leaders must keep America safe. But when Ted Cruz had the chance to fight Barack Obama's dangerously weak anti-terror policies, he didn't.
Marco Rubio's PAC is doing this because they desperately want to change the discussion from his longtime support of President Obama's massive amnesty plan. This PAC ad by Rubio's supporter, where they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars Listen, what it really is, Megyn, is it's a sign of desperation. They want to try to change the topic because I think Marco's campaign is determined that his longtime support of Chuck Schumer and Barack Obama.
Bernie Sanders, United States Senator from the state of Vermont. I want to welcome everybody to the state of Vermont, but when you come up in the wintertime, make sure you bring some warm clothes. It's a little bit colder than here in South Carolina. I have 4 kids. I have 7 beautiful grandchildren. My wife Jane and I have been married for 27 years. I am running for President of the United States because I believe that in our great country we can do a lot better for working people and for poor people than we are currently doing. I think, as many of you know, we are economically a lot better off today under President Obama than we were 7 years ago. Seven years ago, we were losing about 800,000 jobs a month. 7 years ago, the world's financial system was on the verge of collapse. So we have made some good progress, and we should be proud of that. But what we should also remember, that we are the wealthiest country in the history of the world, but most people don't know that because a lot of that wealth rests in the hands of a few, and many, many people have very little. In America today, we should not have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. In America today, we should not have 29 million people without any health insurance, and many more with large deductibles and co-payments. In America today, we should not have a situation where 51% of African American high school graduates between 17 and 20 are unemployed or underemployed. And in America today, we should not have more people in jail than any other country on earth. So I think it makes a lot more sense for us to be investing in education and jobs rather than jails and incarceration. In America, we should not be seeing what we see on our television sets in terms of what some police officers have done to unarmed people. That we should not be seeing. We need major criminal justice reform in this country. All Americans should know when they walk down the street, they're not going to be harassed by police departments. They're not going to be unfairly arrested. So I want to see us as a nation which does not have more people in jail than any other country, but has the best educated population on earth. And that is why I believe that in the year 2015-2016, we should make public colleges and universities tuition free. South Carolina, regardless of the income of his or her family, know that if they study hard in school, they pay attention, they will be able to make it to college, regardless of the income of their family. There are some people out there, I'm not going to be political, talk about cutting Social Security or cutting Medicare. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me when people are trying to get by on $11,000, $12,000, $13,000 a year. We've got to expand Social Security, not cut it. So I just want to thank all of you for allowing me to say a few words. And I look forward to working with all of you to make sure that our great country fulfills its promise for all of our people and creates the kind of nation that you and I know we can become. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Obama's amnesty plan, particularly making it easier to bring Syrian Muslim refugees into this country, that they're now worried about it politically, so they want to change it with a false attack act.
And the latest polls show the public of 67% there against letting the refugees in. Senator Ted Cruz, it's always great talking to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Megan. It's great to be with you.
This is a Fox News Alert. Chicago on edge, bracing for protests as a graphic video is released. Be warned, some viewers may find this extremely graphic. The video showing a white cop shooting and killing a black teen. That officer, Jason Van Dyke, just charged with first-degree murder. And in that video from 2014, 17-year-old Laquan McDonald can be seen walking away from police armed with a small knife. Officer Van Dyke then opens fire, hitting McDonald 16 times. The on-the-record legal panel is here. Former homicide detective and criminal defense attorney Ted Williams, former prosecutor Katie Fang. Ted first to 16 times. He gets out of a car and opens fire 6 seconds later. He's fired 16 rounds in 14 seconds.
Well, Greta, I can tell you I'm outraged about this because this happened in October of 2014. We're just learning about this young man being shot 16 times by this officer. And when you look at the video, this kid is not.
Well, I mean, don't you want a thorough, complete? I mean, like, I want the right investigation. I'm scandalized by what I see on the video, but taking a year for investigation, I mean, that's the least of the problems.
It's the least of the problems, but it showed that, as far as I'm concerned, there was a cover-up in that city of this. They could have brought this out a lot sooner. They didn't. You
know, I'm actually surprised, Katie. When I was practicing law, they wouldn't release any videos or anything until after it's been introduced into evidence. We get this video, and there hasn't even been a trial. It's a stunning video.
It's a stunning video. It's shocking. He literally, Jason Van Dyke, is that bad apple in every bunch that we talk about. And he's the reason why cops get a bad name in terms of the violation of people's rights. I mean, the poor Laquan McDonald, he's dead. But I actually disagree with Ted. I don't think there was any type of cover-up. It takes a long time to investigate a police shooting properly. And the thing that I'm worried about is, was there a rush to indict him for first-degree murder to avoid riots in the streets of Chicago? If I were his defense attorney, I would be all over that.
You know what, though, Katie? But, Katie, according to what's being released, is that he was shot from 10 feet away. So, you know, it's very hard to say that a police officer would be in reasonable fear. He's there armed. He's with another police officer who's armed. Now, he had a knife, but it says small knife. But nonetheless, 10 feet away is not is quite a distance to shooting someone.
It is quite a distance away. And, Katie, you may disagree with me, but you had this video. Any other person, if it wasn't a police officer, you had a video of a police officer being shot this way, you wouldn't take a damn year to do an investigation. You would have moved a lot faster.
They didn't wait a year to do the investigation. I mean, I don't know what took so long, but
I just don't think it should have taken so long, Greta. I think this is outrageous. I think the city leaders have some responsibility to bring this kind of thing to the public's attention, and it doesn't take a year to do it.
I guess now that we have it, I don't see that they tried to hide it. This was always going to come out. As far as I know, they settled with the family of the young man who was $5 million. But I mean, like the facts are pretty stunning. I mean, apparently, what happened, according to the facts in the Chicago Tribune, is that he fired 16 rounds in 14 seconds. He was reloading his gun when another officer told him to stop. Katie?
The entire factual scenario. Yeah, the entire factual scenario is absurd. He was surrounded by 5 other cops. Now, Laquan McDonald was armed with a knife and had PCP in his system, which we know leads to paranoia and hallucinations. But the reality is they were trying to corral Laquan McDonald. He had taken a knife and stabbed the tire and stabbed the windshield of a police squad.
Katie, who gives a damn? He wasn't a threat to the police officers. A police officer can shoot a person if they're a threat to the police officer or to them or another citizen. You can't just assassinate somebody like this guy was assassinated.
I think the important fact, if I were on a jury, is that he was fired from 10 feet away, according at least to the report, and that's 10 feet away, and he's armed with a gun, and there are other police officers there, and that he unloaded his gun. He unloaded the gun. The guy's on the ground after the first or second shot, and he's reloading.
But we must make sure we're clear here to the public. There are some wonderful men and women on police forces. This guy is not representative of those men and women.
He will get his trial, and the jury will have a chance to consider it. But indeed, that is so true. I've been down to that police memorial where there were more than 21,000 names etched on there. But this officer will get his trial. Ted and Katie, thank you.
He will.
You know, Mr. Trump, yesterday I interviewed Ame Horowitz, and he actually got on one of those rafts from Turkey, went to Greece, and then traveled to Germany, interviewed people at the camps where the Syrian refugees are being held. And in spite of what the president says, he says 80% of them are men between the ages of 18 and 50. The president keeps talking about orphans as he insists that we've got to take in these Syrian refugees. Is he being honest with the American people?
Well, Sean, I've been bringing it up for weeks. I looked at the migration, and I'm saying, you know, there doesn't seem to be very many women or children in that. They actually look like mostly young, very strong men. And I'm saying, what's going on? This could be the ultimate Trojan horse. But I'm saying, what's going on? Why are there so many men and so many young, strong men? And people are starting to see that now. I think I'm the first to have brought it up, but people are starting to see that now. In any event, we can't do this. We just can't do it. We have so many problems in our country, and I like the idea of building a safe zone in Syria and contributing and working with other countries and the Gulf states who have to put up a lot of money. They have so much money and they're not spending it. But I think that's great. But you know what, from a humanitarian standpoint, but we can't take these people. We don't know who they are. They're totally undocumented. Nobody knows where they came from. They don't have any paperwork at all. And we just can't be doing it.
You know, so what you're saying, you're willing to offer humanitarian assistance. You're willing to create a safe zone with a coalition. You're willing to provide food and water and medical supplies and cots and blankets and what the people need. Our intelligence officials are warning it's almost impossible to ascertain whether or not ISIS will infiltrate the refugee population like they did in France. James Clapper, the head of intelligence, our FBI director, our assistant FBI director, the House chairman of the Homeland Security Committee are all saying that we can't possibly know if they'll infiltrate. So must you not conclude that the president is willing to gamble with the lives of Americans?
Look, we have a president, frankly, that doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't have a clue. I've been watching law enforcement officials, many of them, saying there's no way we can tell. There's absolutely no method. There's nothing we can do to really tell and to really be sure. And it only takes one or two people. You see the destruction that they can cause and the problems. And then they say, well, we're taking some youth. Well, the two Boston bombers, you know, they came in who did such a horrible thing with the Boston Marathon. They came in, one was a very young guy and the other was a young guy, but they were very young people when they came in and they became radicalized and horrible, and you saw what happened there. So it doesn't matter to me. We cannot do this. We should help them in terms of their land. We should help them build a safe zone. We should do whatever we can, get everybody involved, build a big, beautiful safe zone, and then hopefully someday people can go back to, you know, where they want to be probably, which is where they grew up when this whole mess ends. But it's a very, very dangerous thing for our country to be taking these people.
Listen, the State Department issues this generic security threat and warning to Americans. On the same day, Turkey, as you know, earlier today, a Russian warplane was shot down near the Syrian border. They say they did not violate Turkey's airspace. And as a result of that, the New York Times pointed out one of the pilots that parachuted out was shot. And President Obama's comments were, well, Turkey has a right to defend its airspace, and he calls for a de-escalation. I'm not sure he's understanding what actually happened here.
I don't think he understands anything. I mean, he won't even say where the problem is. He won't talk about it. He won't mention anything that's slightly controversial having to do with Muslim. And I know many Muslims. They're wonderful people. But we have a lot of problems. And the problems, as I always say it, they don't come from Sweden. This is a problem that's unique, and it's a very deep-seated problem. And we have to get to the bottom of it. But we can't be taking the people in. We can't be taking the Syrian refugees in. And we have to be very smart. We're not being smart right now. Now you're seeing planes being shot down. I mean, what are we going to end up with World War III here because we have a president that doesn't know what he's doing?
Let me go to this whole controversy over the fact that you talked about people in New Jersey, that there were reports that, in fact, there was celebrations after 9/11. Now, if we go to the Washington Post, and this was just 7 days after 9/11 on the 18th, the Washington Post says, in Jersey City, within 2 hours of two jetliners plowing into the World Trade Center, law enforcement authorities detained and questioned a number of people who were allegedly seen celebrating the attacks and holding tailgate-style parties on rooftops while they watched the devastation from the other side of the river. By the way, the Associated Press, at the same time, also wrote about rumors of rooftop celebrations. The Washington Post, I looked, I don't see one example where they made a correction in 15 years or 14 years. The Star-Ledger...
They did no correction, absolutely.
And the Star-Ledger also reported it. But the way this was reported is that you made this up whole cloth. You did not make it up whole cloth.
No, I didn't make it up. No, no. It happened. It was on. I saw it. It was all over the place. It was on the Internet. And by the way, Sean, I have received, you had that Washington Post article, which was 6 or 7 days later. I have received hundreds of phone calls in my office from people saying they saw it. They were over there. People that live in New Jersey, they saw it. There was a celebration that they were so happy when the World Trade Center was coming down that they were celebrating. And I've had hundreds of phone calls, and I've had many, many tweets on @RealDonaldTrump. But I've had many, many tweets and people saying that they saw it, that I was right.
Yeah.
And I am right. I mean, I'm 100% right. Look, I'm only saying it because we have to be vigilant. I'm not saying it for any reason. I don't want to stir anything up. But you have some people living here where we have some very, very serious problems. We have to be very careful. We have to be very vigilant.
And that brings up the question, your comments earlier this week about waterboarding. Now, I had interviewed Jose Rodriguez. He was involved in this, and he repeated to me numerous times, and we only waterboarded 3 people. A lot of people don't know that. Only 3. But in the case of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, it led to the intel, which led to the courier, which led to bin Laden. So, according to him, I asked him, would we have gotten bin Laden without the waterboarding? And he said, absolutely, we would not have. Explain why you think that that is a necessary tool that we need to be using.
Well, first of all, I think it works. I have no doubt that it works. And maybe not in all cases, and maybe they'll give false information sometimes, but I have no doubt that it works. But the fact is that they're chopping off heads. They're drowning people in cages. They're keeping the cage underwater for a half hour and then pulling it up with many people in there. They're doing acts that nobody has ever seen before or even heard of before, and we're worried about waterboarding. How stupid can we be? And it does work, the waterboarding.
We lost 3,000 people.
Also,
we lost 3,000 people because of radical Islamists. Let me play for you Congressman Keith Ellison. I think he's the first Muslim American congressman, and if I remember correctly, he took the oath on the Quran. And he made a comment that your rhetoric could cause assaults and murders. And I want to give you a chance to respond to him directly. Listen to what he said.
All right.
He's whipping up hatred to scapegoat a minority religious group, which has some very dangerous historic precedents, as you might agree. I mean, it's the kind of behavior that it's classic demagoguery. And, you know, he's going to get somebody hurt. The people who are mentally unstable or motivated by hate come out of the woodwork, and you see desecrations of buildings that are associated with that group. You see assaults. You see murders.
Mr. Trump, I've never heard you talk about Muslims in general. I've heard you talk about radical Islamists. He is saying that is not the case. What's your answer to him?
Well, again, we have a president that refuses to even use the term radical Islamic terrorism or anything having to do with that. And unless he's going to use the term, unless he's going to understand what's going on, we're never going to solve the problem. We have to solve the problem. As far as what
Bernie Sanders, the United States Senator from the state of Vermont. I want to welcome everybody to the state of Vermont, but when you come up in the wintertime, make sure you bring some warm clothes. It's a little bit colder than here in South Carolina. I have 4 kids. I have 7 beautiful grandchildren. My wife Jane and I have been married for 27 years. I am running for President of the United States. because I believe that in our great country, we can do a lot better for working people and for poor people than we are currently doing. I think, as many of you know, we are economically a lot better off today under President Obama than we were 7 years ago. Seven years ago, we were losing about 800,000 jobs a month. 7 years ago, the world's financial system was on the verge of collapse. So we have made some good progress, and we should be proud of that. But what we should also remember, that we are the wealthiest country in the history of the world. But most people don't know that, because a lot of that wealth rests in the hands of a few. Many, many people have very little. In America today, we should not have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. In America today, we should not have 29 million people without any health insurance, and many more with large deductibles and co-payments. In America today, we should not have a situation where 51% of African American high school graduates between 17 and 20 are unemployed or underemployed. And in America today, we should not have more people in jail than any other country on earth. So I think it makes a lot more sense for us to be investing in education and jobs rather than jails and incarceration. And in America, we should not be seeing what we see on our television sets in terms of what some police officers have done to unarmed people. That we should not be seeing. We need major criminal justice reform in this country. All Americans should know when they walk down the street, they're not going to be harassed by police departments. They're not going to be unfairly arrested. So I want to see us as a nation which does not have more people in jail than any other country, but has the best educated population on earth. And that is why I believe that in the year 2015, 2016, we should make public colleges and universities tuition free. I want to see every child in South Carolina, regardless of the income of his or her family, know that if they study hard in school, they pay attention, they will be able to make it to college, regardless of the income of their family. There are some people out there, I'm not going to be political, talk about cutting Social Security or cutting Medicare. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me when people are trying to get by on $11,000, $12,000, $13,000 a year. We've got to expand Social Security, not cut it. I just want to thank all of you for allowing me to say a few words, and I look forward to working with all of you to make sure that our great country fulfills its promise for all of our people and creates the kind of nation that you and I know we can become. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
What he said, more people are getting hurt by being weak. We can be weak and we can close our eyes to the problems in this country. And we do that too often anyway. But we can close our eyes, put blindfolders on, and more people are going to get hurt by doing that, John. You're going to have so many people hurt. And I'm talking about massive. We cannot continue to be a weak country that's poorly led and just wants to be politically correct about everything. You have to say what it is. You have to use the terms and the terminology. You're never going to solve the problem. You're never going to solve the problem with this president anyway. I've been telling you on your show for 3 years now, you have to attack the oil. You have to take over the oil. You have to attack the oil. They were laughing, oh, how crazy. They were going to generals, and the generals were told what to say. And they were saying, now all of a sudden, 3-4 days ago after Paris, they start attacking the oil, doing exactly what I said. In fact, I said you should do much more. You should keep it.
They are the richest terrorist organization, and they have more landmass than any other terror group before. Look at these numbers. I have a stack of articles. I know you can't see them where you are, Mr. Trump. Today's USA Today. It quotes Karl Rove. I don't agree with his policies. He's not a conservative. He's only been a Republican for just a short period of time out of convenience. John Kasich is now running ads. We'll call it like the golden oldies of Donald Trump, things that he thinks you said that are controversial. You've got a group that has declared war on you, an establishment group with Liz Mayer and Rick Wilson, and they're planning on spending tons of money. But the bottom line is clearly you have now established yourself as the guy to beat. Now they're going to be spending the money. Now they've declared pretty much war against you, and the ads are coming. What is your answer to the battle that they have started?
Well, this is really a violation of the pledge. You know, the pledge was taken by me in all good faith, and this is a little bit of a violation, or a big part of a violation. As far as, you know, like a guy like Kasich, he's so far down in the polls, he's embarrassed. He's the governor of Ohio. I'm beating him in Ohio soundly in the polls, and I'm killing him. I think he's down to 2 now. I mean, I think he'll probably have to get out of the race. So this is just desperation for him. He probably doesn't want to do it, but he's got no choice. Karl Rove is a loser. I mean, Karl Rove has been hitting me for years now, and you know, he still thinks Mitt Romney won the election. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. He spent hundreds of millions of dollars on elections and didn't win one of them. And then last time, in order to get a couple of victories, he went to sure things. I think over the last year and a half, he went to sure elections because he had to get some victories under his belt with the money that he rips off from people. So Karl Rove has been a loser for a long time. The most important poll is also in the Fox poll, and you see it, that I'm beating Hillary Clinton very soundly.
You're beating Hillary Clinton in a head-to-head matchup. That's right.
Right.
So my question to you, though, is obviously the establishment's going to spend millions and millions now. I mean, you see the articles. I assume you're reading them. And I assume that there's going to be some response from you. What is it? And are you considering going third party? I mean, because that came up yesterday.
Let me put it this way. Look, you know, I love the Republican Party. Ronald Reagan was a Democrat also, and he went, you know, Republican and pretty conservative Republican. He was actually somewhat of a liberal Democrat, and he changed. And I was a Democrat at one point, and I became a Republican. I'm really following a very similar path, actually, and we have a lot of things in common, I can tell you that. But, you know, it wasn't the deal that I made. I made a deal, I made a pledge, and they're not treating me right when they do that. And all they do is, you know, they're trying to save themselves. They look very bad. They look very foolish. There are people, all the people that you mentioned look very, very foolish, and they're trying to save something out of it. But it's not a good thing. And it wasn't the deal I made. I have to be honest with you. It wasn't the deal I made with the RNC and Reince and the group. That wasn't what I did. So we'll see what happens. But right now, I'm very happy where I am. I'm leading by tremendous margins. And, you know, we just had the great Iowa poll. In New Hampshire, we're leading by tremendous. South Carolina, which you didn't mention, we're leading by a tremendous amount. And hopefully we can carry that on to the end, and I'll win the election. But, you know, I love the Republicans. I'm a conservative guy, and we'll see what happens.
All right. You made the deal with Reince. Are you happy with Reince previous? Are you happy with the RNC? Karl Rove is not a part of that. These other groups, establishment groups, money groups, are not a part of that. So are you going to hold Reince and the RNC responsible and threaten to go third party, even though he's not involved?
Well, I'm just going to look at it. He's a nice person. He's a nice man. We get along great. But, you know, I mean, there should be some semblance of order within the party. They've lost so many elections. Romney should have won the last election. Some bad things happened there, okay? Some really bad things. And he obviously didn't finish very well in the last month. I don't know what happened to him, but he certainly didn't finish very strong. That wouldn't happen with me. Believe me, we will win. That's why I'm doing it. I backed John McCain. And because of Karl Rove and what happened in that last, you know, few months with Bush, I mean, in all fairness, I don't blame McCain. He couldn't have won that election. What happened at the last few months of the Bush I mean, it was a disaster. Now, Romney should have won. That should have been won.
Right,
and I think Karl Rove still thinks that Romney won. You know, Karl Rove is going around saying, I think Romney won. I think Romney won. It took him like 3 days to realize that Romney didn't win. That should have been an election that was won, and it wasn't. I don't want to have that happen again. We have great potential in our country. Our country has tremendous potential. I always say the American dream is dead, but I'm going to make it bigger and better and stronger than ever before. I'm not going to rely on anybody anymore. I mean, I backed both of them. And again, I don't blame McCain. That was an election that really would have been very hard to win because of what happened in the final months of the Bush administration. But I do blame Romney. He should have won that election. Something happened. He went away. He wasn't doing what he should have been doing. While Obama, say what you want, he was going on talk shows. He was on Jay Leno and Letterman. He was all over the place. Romney was like lost. And I don't want to have that happen again.
Well, I don't think the country can afford to lose again. I'm going to play you two ads.
They cannot afford it.
I agree. We can't afford it with foreign policy, and the economy's in shambles. Last question, I'm going to play you two ads. The DNC attacking Republicans. They say you're grouping all Muslims together, but they even quote you in the ad as saying, we have a problem with radical Muslims. They tend to bypass that, and I want to play your ad against Hillary laughing about Benghazi. Let's play them both.
Including FBI officials. Look.
Well, I don't know why that's funny.
We are at war with radical Islam.
Radical Islamic terrorism.
You do have a problem with radical Muslims.
Radical Islamic jihadists.
Radical Islamic terrorism. How far in are you going to go in an ad war if millions and millions are being spent on you, against you?
Well, look, I built a great company. The company is amazing. It's, it's peanuts we're talking about. I'm going to spend whatever I have to spend. I'm going to spend what I need to spend. And, part of the reason that I'm doing so well is I have some of the great assets of the world. I have tremendous cash flows. When I filed my statements, everybody was amazed at the size of what I've been able to build. And that, frankly, is the reason I tell you that is that's the kind of thinking that our country needs, Sean. We need that kind of thinking. We owe now, if you look, $19 trillion. And we have nothing but problems. Obamacare is a disaster. It's got to be repealed and replaced. Our vets aren't taken care of. Our military isn't taken care of. We're falling way behind. We're the most unprepared now in the military than we've ever been in the history of our nation. Think of that. Said by General Orellana. That was by him. That wasn't by me. I watched him on one of the shows. I think it was on Fox, actually, believe it or not. And, we are in bad shape. And we can take this next election, but we have to be smart, and we do have to be unified. I'm a unifier, believe it or not. A lot of people would say I'm not. I'm a great unifier. I get along with people. And you watch what happens. We'll unify. But we have to unify as a party, because if we don't, I will tell you, we're going to have another loss. And you don't want to lose. You can't have another 4 years of a Hillary Clinton. That would be catastrophic. I will say this. If I get the nomination, I will beat Hillary Clinton.
All right, Mr. Trump, always a pleasure. Thanks for being with us.